Interpreting assessment information. Now that you have multiple windows and measures to gather assessment data, we need to interpret what the assessments mean and how to use them to help our students develop and learn. This presentation will discuss analyzing, interpreting, and understanding assessment information. Interpreting assessments is a high-level process that requires analysis of information, integration of that information with other data, comparison with developmental guidelines and curriculum expectations, and making valid hypotheses about what it all means. Before you begin to analyze the assessments that you have gathered, make sure you follow these safeguards. Compare performance at 2 or more points in time. There should be sufficient distance between the points to permit learning to occur. Similar types of measurements should be used each time. Work from compilations and summaries. Don't work from memory. Work from recorded information. Look for patterns, including patterns of errors, rather than isolated instances. Patterns can serve as clues that may help you better understand what is happening with the child. Consider unique patterns of development, temperament, interests, and dispositions for individuals as well as groups, as this can give you a better understanding of the child's performance. Identify areas of concern. Do others share these concerns? It will be important to determine if the concern is isolated or not. These safeguards will help ensure authenticity and trustworthiness. Also, make sure that you have enough assessment samples and that they are representative of what is being assessed. Make sure that collected information is balanced, using multiple windows that are recorded consistently over time. Understanding the meaning of assessment information requires you to look at the information from different perspectives. When generating multiple hypotheses, here are a few guidelines that will help you put your own opinions aside and help you analyze just the information that you have gathered. Avoid thinking in terms of certainties and absolutes. Information may have several meanings depending on what aspect you are focusing on. Consult with colleagues for additional insight instead of blaming the child's home, or last year's teacher. Interpretations should only reflect what you actually know. Your interpretation must be backed with data. If the data is not there, don't make a definite conclusion. The most important information may be hard to document, things such as motivation, family support, and encouragement. Don't focus too closely on specific aspects. You may lose sight of strengths. Keep a broad view of the child. Learning and development are on a continuum moving towards a more advanced behavior or knowledge. There are multiple reasons why an interval describes a child's performance better than a specific point or score. There can be errors in the assessment information that you have gathered. Errors can be caused by external influences such as hunger, illness, or problems at home. Lack of a response does not mean that a child cannot perform a task, only that she did not. Remember that there are normal variations in development and learning. Just because one child was toilet trained at 18 months and another at 2 years old does not necessarily point to either as advanced or delayed development. One size does not fit all. The development process is a dynamic one. It can occur in spurts, and a child may be able to do something today that they could not be done yesterday. Also, it is not unusual for development to be uneven across different areas or domains. A child might have good language skills, but poor gross motor skills. Particularly with young children, It is important to look at the developmental continuum and provide a supportive structure to strengthen emerging skills. It is important to consider the socio-cultural context in which the child's behavior occurs. We cannot interpret children's behavior apart from their socio-cultural context. The socio-cultural context encompasses who the child interacts with, what materials are used, as well as the time and setting of the interaction. Look for two things. The context may be hindering development and learning. If the child has always been given assistance with dressing himself or feeding himself, it is likely that these skills will not be well developed. Also, look for ways the context may be supporting development and learning. To what extent does the child have the opportunity to hear and use language? What is the evidence that the child is in a language-rich environment? Learning processes and strategies refer to the ability to relate present learning to prior knowledge, construct theories and generalizations, transfer learning to another situation, or use prompts, hints, and clues. These are not easy to interpret. Patterns and analyses help us look at learning processes and strategies. Examples of underlying mental processes are: how well can the child focus attention or remain undistracted? Can she regulate her emotions well enough to interact successfully with children or with adults? Analyze error patterns. A systematic error is consistent and typically tells you that the child misapplies what they know. Random areas have no consistency and can be evidence of guessing or lack of information. Skip errors also have no pattern, but may reflect inattention, impulsivity, or a lack of interest. And finally, look for qualitative and quantitative differences. Qualitative differences include the complexity of performance and how accurately the task is performed. Quantitative differences include the number of correct performances or responses. In summary, understanding a student's learning processes and strategies is an important part of assessment analysis. In order to understand your student's learning processes and strategies, you need to examine underlying mental processes. Look for error patterns. Determine what the student's prior knowledge is. Analyze student responses and look for qualitative and quantitative differences. This will help you understand your student's thinking and learning processes. This will also help you determine what might be causing a learning problem for a student and provide you with information on how to help them overcome those problems.